Today on the show, Jose and I want to welcome Martha Niño. She's a Silicon Valley veteran who has a good story to tell. And it's a story I'm very familiar with. And when I first met Martha, I referred to her as my Silicon Valley twin. Because we have a lot in common. Because I grew up there. Kind of look like each other too. We're like sisters, brothers and sisters. Anyway, Martha shared her story on stage in front of hundreds of her coworkers there at Adobe. For many of you who don't know, Adobe is one of the biggest companies in the world, and many of their products are used on a daily basis by many of us. Today, you'll be hearing some parts of our talk, and the reason I wanted to bring her on the show is because I believe that her story of cracking that code to get into the tech industry, making it past, that one barrier that we talk about, barrier that gets established by gatekeepers, people who run that place. And sometimes those barriers are self-imposed. So I want to play a little bit of Martha's talk. Here she is on the stage.
I was born in central Mexico in a grass shack with no electricity, no doctor. Mom went to school till 6th grade and Dad, orphaned at 8, barely made it past 3rd. My parents picked cotton for a living, and I traveled from farm to farm picking this cotton, but needless to say, it wasn't enough. They needed to do something different. They needed to take a risk. So they made a decision. They were going to come up to El Norte, to the USA. They said goodbye to their loved ones, not knowing when or if they'd see them again. They packed one change of clothes in a bag because that's all they had. They took off. They said goodbye. I was just a baby.
Martha, welcome to the show.
Woo, you guys almost made me cry.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. This is so fun. We do look like each other, you see.
We're twins.
I have a little mustache, too.
Oh.
She just called your mustache little.
Or mine big, however you want to take it. Thank you. That was beautiful.
First and foremost, this is actually the most important question of the day. It's perhaps the most important question ever. And I want you to answer honestly, please.
Yeah.
Are burritos tacos?
Okay, it all depends on who you're talking to, pero for me, burritos are just tacos.
They are just tacos. That's what you said.
They're ginormous tortilla with stuff in it. There's a big taco, right? I don't know. I mean, some people might argue with me.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We're keeping a track of who's who's right and wrong. Right now, just you and Jose are just losing. There's a billion other people.
Really?
I'm kidding.
No.
Tell me about this one, Isidro.
I know. No, that's the fun of it. Last week we had Professor Alvarez. We asked him the same thing. He answered it very eloquently, safely too. So that's the fun part. We'll get back to your talk. Again, there's several parts that we want to play for our audience today. And we want to thank everybody for joining us today. But first, let's talk about the tacos in the Bay Area. Right now that I've moved out, there's a whole different world. But the tacos in the Bay Area, you mentioned a taqueria you frequent and where they know you by first name. Can you tell us about that?
That's the one I go to. Well, look, I think everybody wants to feel welcome, kind of like Norm on Cheers. Like there's such a warm feeling about going into a place and they're like, hey, Marta, I know your order, like that kind of thing, right? I'll be right up. ¿Cómo está la familia? Like whatever. And, it feels like family. It feels like going to visit family. And it doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be, have bells and whistles. If it feels warm to me, and as I've gotten older, I appreciate this even more. Right? You gravitate towards it because honestly, we need a little bit more of that, I think, in the universe. So a lot of these businesses are small. And you know what? Why not help out family? Right. So, and not only that, but it's delicious.
Yeah. It's one of those foods that people just can't live without around the world. So, yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Um,
So that's the warm feeling I get when I go into, my local taquerias or taqueros. There's a guy around the corner. They call him El Güero because he looks like me with light hair and everything. And the guy's there hustling, making his tacos. And I think I told you, see, though, he always throws an extra toasted tortilla with frijoles on our order. That's an extra little thing that I'm just like, this is cool.
yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, last week we had on Professor Steven Alvarez. He said that while he was in grad school, his connection to his Mexican culture and food grew stronger because of the whiteness of academia. He began to focus more on scholarship that integrated those qualities. One of the reasons why is he wanted his parents to be able to read and understand his PhD thesis. But the connection grew stronger overall. How has your relationship with Mexican food changed throughout your career, and specifically tacos?
Yeah, so listen, I grew up humbly, as you kind of can tell from the talk, the little expert. My mom always made tacos. I mean, that is kind of like a given in a Mexican household. There's a comal, there's tortillas, frijoles, and chile. Like, that you cannot miss that on the estufa, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the stove. I kind of took that for granted, to be honest, growing up. And I grew up here, and we'll probably talk about this later, but I grew up in Northern California. This is where we resided after coming undocumented from Mexico. But the food didn't change, right? I mean, my parents came here. The one little store that was around the corner in Northern California at the time was very non-diverse, right? It was like 2 or 3 races, and that was it. And there was one tiendita that was selling the tortillas and the occasional Mexican spice or whatever it was, and that was our little store that we went to. So as far as food went, I mean, my parents tried to that's all they knew how to cook. They didn't know how to cook hamburgers, right? It's tortillas, it's chile, and it's rice and beans and all that. Anyways, I took it for granted growing up because as a teenager, little kid, you're just like, it's food, right? And everybody around us was eating different things. And to be honest, I kind of liked learning about the different foods that other people had. It was different to me. It was not tacos. It was not, rice or mole or whatever, although delicious. So we learned from each other. And I'm going to tell you a story. My neighbor, she was white. Her name's Denise. And I lived in a 1-bedroom home, and it was like a duplex. And she lived on one duplex. I lived on the other. And I'd go to her house for mac and cheese and meatloaf, and she'd come to my house for tamales or tacos, whatever, right? So I invited her to my house one day. We were making tamales, and the girl did not take the husk out of the tamal, right? She hadn't been, exposed to this type of food. So she's like, these are very chewy, right? And
just like Gerald Ford.
Right? Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes, when he came to Texas, he bit right into it.
Yes. I mean, well, how are you supposed to know, right? I mean, if nobody exposed you to these things, how are you supposed to know? That's how we learned. That's how I learned what mac and cheese tastes like. It's delicious. That's how she learned how tacos and tamales are eaten, right? But, you kind of took it for granted, all these foods that we just naturally, I mean, that's what we had morning, night, middle of the day, weekends, whatever, that was our food. It wasn't until after I got a little older that I appreciated it, because there's a special way of making these foods. I mean, we don't waste anything, no ingredients. My mom, you can ask her how she made something and it would be completely different. She's like, oh, a little of this, a little of that, un poquito de esto, un poquito del otro, right? And anything left over turned into next day's meal. So there was never any food wasted. And as I've gotten older, I appreciate the creativity that goes into these tacos. A veces we have them with nopales. A veces we have them with chile. A veces we have them with chorizo. Whatever's left over, that's what your taco of the day is going to be, right? So I appreciate it. And, honestly, it kind of holds growing up and actually, working in a very non-Latino environment. I appreciate it even more. Yeah, so I try to kind of keep that culture alive. I try to hold on to my roots as much as possible. It's just so important because otherwise I think we will lose it.
Yeah.
We'll lose it. And as you see that on nose, I mean, I'm a proud Mexican girl, I mean, that's who I am. I'm not going to fake it. And even in these environments where there isn't much of that, it's kind of cool that I'm able to tell like a story like that, like the real hardcore stories. And if we could wrap it around food, wow, that's just kind of the tamale, right? That's just kind of the prize. Anyways, that's kind of my relationship with food. And I've tried to keep it alive. And I've actually tried to cook myself. And I'm not as good as my mother. Nobody's as good as our mom.
We're never going to be as good as our mother.
No, we're never as good as our moms. And as a matter of fact, last week she was teaching me how to make mole. Do you know how many ingredients are in mole? My goodness.
72.
36, 42. It sounds like a lotto number.
Yeah.
Right? So tacos in particular, to me, are kind of a base. I think for any Latin meal, particularly Mexican, right? It's the tortilla, it's your carb, it's whatever goes in it. And then you throw in that little, salsa on top, whatever it might be around. And you got yourself kind of the easiest possible wrap. You can say, but I do, I think tacos are just, I don't know. I think they represent our culture so well because it can be made so many different ways. And Isidro talks about this on, all the time. And, but, thank you for keeping that conversation alive, Isidro. I really appreciate
well,
that.
Jose, too. We're partners in crime here. And
Thank
tacos,
you,
in a bigger sense, it's a metaphor to a lot of the successes that we accomplish. And we never give ourselves credits for because it's a common food. But it's one of the reasons why we wanted to bring you on here because it's hard to make it in the Silicon Valley, and you have sort of cracked that code. I want to go back to, speaking of last week when we had Professor Alvarez, he cites in one of the books that he has, Brokering Tareas, which was a study he did. It's a pretty cool book. It touched me because it was just a lot of the case studies were Mexicanos in New York. But one of the things that he cites in there, and I don't believe he came up with the term, because he cites it from somebody. It's called the immigrant bargain. And in short, it's life-defining sacrifices of migration converted into an urgent tale of moral worth or failure, right? Often seen, and happens in the second generation, these comparisons to their parents' sacrifices and not meeting those expectations. And I found it very interesting. I want to play a couple of portions of your talk that talk into this, and then we'll ask you a question following up on that.
Okay.
Imagine handing over your little child to a complete stranger and hoping everything would be okay. That's what my parents did. Is the situation so bad in Mexico that you'd hand your child to a complete stranger and hope everything would be okay? First thing first, get to California. Now this trip was dangerous, and with a child, even worse. They weighed their options and decided they would travel by foot along the border hills and beaches of Mexico while I would cross the border in a car with a stranger that wasn't my mother.
That's why I call you my twin, because we sort of went through something like that. And this to me exemplifies the sacrifice and the risks. I mean, these were risks that were taken to get here to America and make a better life, right? Can you talk a little more about the forces that exist that push you to go through those barriers, even if they're self-imposed?
Yeah, you know what? This is such an interesting. I got chills. I mean, I think people don't understand, and this is why I'm so passionate about talking. Um, People don't understand that yes, the situations are so bad in these other countries because they don't see these other countries the way we have been in them. And I mean, where I came from, there was no electricity and no water. There was nothing. I mean, I come from a grass shack, and literally. And so the fact that I'm like, at Adobe or whatever, and been in Silicon Valley 25, it's even that, like, you should see, like, it's so extreme. People don't understand that the situations are that bad that my parents had to risk. They're like, we're either going to starve and make nothing of ourselves, and who knows what will happen with Martha, and or we're going to maybe risk that possibly something good might happen with our family. And something good could be, do I have electricity in this other place? I mean, I tell you, when they came to the United States, we ended up at that one bedroom. We had electricity. We had running water. God, we were making it in America now, right? That was so much better than where I came from. We no longer had to go into the river and get water. We no longer had to, wash our clothes. We were making it. We had something a little bit more than we had. So the risk, for some, it's worth taking. I tell you, look at what my mother risked. She handed me to a stranger, like a woman that wasn't even my mother. I passed as her daughter in a car. Then imagine that, like and while they were walking along the border hills, right, of San Diego, and then hoping, let's hold on to that. They were hoping we'd reunite. There was a chance that we could not. Right. So in our particular case, we did reunite, and then we started kind of this new life. They had nothing but hope and whatever was on their backs. Right. And they settled. We now had water. We now had electricity. We were making it in America. Anything above that was good. Anything above that was better. So, these barriers that people put on us, it's interesting because when I started working, I actually started working at 10 years old, delivering papers. I don't know, I remember like newspapers back in the day, and I did that for 4 years, and it was an all boys, type of environment. And I was like, I want to do it because it paid me $1 per paper, and I'm like, that's more than I had, and I had 40 papers. But I did that, and my dad didn't stop me from doing that, although it was an all boys profession, if you will. And then as I kind of moved on, like, I feel like my parents didn't say, you can't do this, you can't do that. I want to tell you guys how I got into tech. It was kind of by accident. I didn't know that I shouldn't be in tech. I didn't know I should. I had been working since 10, right? So by the time I got into tech, I was 20 something, in early 20s. I didn't have a degree, by the way. I knew nothing about technology, but I knew how to work. I knew how to interview, and I was pretty confident that I can get work done and learn. And so when they were telling me if I wanted this job, my first job was at a sound company, but I thought they had said sand company, like arena. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to go into the materials business. I literally thought that. And I'm like, whatever, we'll figure it out. That's what we do. We figure it out. And so by accident, it was not a sand company. It was a sound company. And that was my start in tech. 0 barriers. 0. I didn't know I couldn't be there. Because at that time, if right now there's only 3% of Latinos in tech, back then there was like 0.3, right? Yes, we had barriers from, coming undocumented. Yes, there was all of that. But I never really heard, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. And I think it's super important to do that because sometimes I feel like, we say, oh, it's porque somos Latinos. Oh, it's because I don't have this degree. It's because I don't know this. Like, we want to have all the check marks. And we don't need to. We don't need to. We need to be talking to people like that we want to be around. We need to be in the network, not networking. Network is not a job, but be in it, be in those environments. And and if you like it, then stay there. I actually liked those people in that sound company. So I stayed there, and then I kept moving and moving to different companies because one of the ladies referred me to that mobile company, and then from there another person referred me over to software. But because we work hard and we're nice people and all of that. But anyways, I wanted to address that topic of self-imposed barriers. I think sometimes we think we have to meet certain people's expectations, and in reality, we just have to meet our own. We just have to meet our own and like it, and surround ourselves with people that up level us. Irrelevant of color. Remember, nobody looked like me.
Yeah, it sort of goes along, not exactly, but it goes along that what you think people think of you, and once you tell your stories that, oh man, that they're not gonna let me in. I heard something the other day. It's so simple. I've heard it before, but it just struck for some reason. It said that something that what people think about you is none of your business. Right. And you're thinking like, yeah, because most people don't walk around thinking about you. They think about other things. Or, well, I'm thinking about tacos. I don't have time for you. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, Jose.
Yeah, there's breakfast tacos too. Let's talk about those.
God.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Con un huevito.
Coming in from Texas and wanting breakfast tacos right now too. So
okay, so Texas, I do business with Texas, and one of the companies there, they always order breakfast tacos, always for us, and it's because that's a Tex. I don't know. I think it's just super common.
It's the country of Texas.
It's not common here in Northern California, except at my mother's house, porque she always has for breakfast a tortilla with her huevito and a little chile, and that's it. That's all she needs to kind of get her through her morning. So
weenies and eggs. That's all I gotta say. Weenies and eggs.
Yeah. Whatever.
So
let me cancel the show.
So you spoke about skin color and you spoke about tacos at work. Do you think that there is a double standard when it comes to hiring in tech? Specifically, I'm thinking Latinas versus other ethnic or racial groups that have a stereotype for having an affinity for that kind of work.
Well, look, I think it is a complicated question, but I'm going to try to simplify it. If we don't think we can be there, we won't go there. And that's why I think that it's important for me, people who look like Isidro, like all of us, right, to show our faces and say, we're there. We've been there, and how we do it and how we did it. Because nobody in my family ever entered tech, obviously. Tech didn't even exist up until 30, 40 years ago, right? So how are we supposed to know what that world is like? So it requires, I think, first of all, exposure. Let's show ourselves and let's talk reality. In the Silicon Valley, we're surrounded by, Central Valley, a lot of agricultural communities, and they don't think they can even get out of that. And so it's really important for me to go, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Forget those barriers. Go in there and start networking. Go in there and start talking to people. Don't be afraid. Who cares if 100 people say no? One person might say yes. That kind of thing. And I think that some of the barriers are put on ourselves. Like I said earlier, I think you should just apply. I think you should just go for it. And now in a world where diversity is being talked about even more, this is our chance. Get in there. Get in there. This is our chance. No, but seriously, I think that the few of us that are in there now, and it's growing, but it's still, 2-3%, a couple companies a little bit more, but need to be loud, need to be proud, and need to be real and raw about how they're doing it, because they don't know, or people that are trying to get into it don't really know those worlds. So let's talk about those worlds. And granted, also learn from those people that are in it that don't even look like us at all and that have been in it for generations. Let's learn from them too. I tell you, most of the people I learned this world from, zero look like me. They were not there. How can I? So I had to be open to learning from everybody. And at the time, I didn't even know I was doing it. To be honest, I was just making friends. I'm just doing, the work. And now that I kind of put it together and kind of reflect back, I just didn't let it stop me. We shouldn't let it stop us from applying, from learning, and those that are actually in it from talking about it and how.
So then, do you think the presence of more tacos in the workplace would trigger a paradigm shift in hiring practices?
Look at this. So I love this because, I'm a proud Mexican girl, right? So at work, I have at one point, and you can ask people at Adobe, I have blocked the boardroom. I have brought in like a comal, and I said, you bring this, you bring that. This has a sign-in sheet. I'll make you guys.
Seriously?
I have a picture. I have a picture, and I got in trouble because there was a little smoke coming in the boardroom, and I'm making tacos there. Like, I think it was Cinco de Mayo, right? And which is another story, but whatever, it didn't matter. They were there. They're enjoying the food with me. We're playing music. People were participating and bringing food. They're probably like, what the heck is going on, right? But then we heard, wait, can we get invited to this again? Absolutely. So I think we just have to make it kind of non-taboo that this is who we are. We are a very welcoming culture. We're happy to food, I think, creates bonds. And I have to tell you, those are some of the better parties that I've had at Adobe. And I just do it because I did it because people needed to get together. Tacos are easy to make. Yeah. Right. And they're fun. Like, I'm making tacos. I'm talking to the people. Like, there's something about that that's very beautiful. Right. And also, I also think there's bigger networks now starting of Latinos that are being more vocal about their cultures and just saying, hey, we're going to have a Taco Tuesdays. Right. A lot of cafeterias have Taco Tuesdays. And I think that once people start seeing us and kind of, it's light, it's fun, these people are pretty cool, then, maybe more people will start embracing us as well.
Tacos are a force for good.
Yes.
Yes. They will change the world.
One tortilla at a time.
Yeah, it's so fun.
In your talk, you started off with a little story about you were giving a tour, and then it hit you that some of the kids had faces. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
So I had never. I mean, now I'm feeling pretty comfortable about speaking of like the raw story, the immigration story, all of that. But prior to that, and this is 25 years, I hadn't really talked about the real story in the workplace. Mainly because it never came up. So I'm like, if it's not broke, why fix it? Type of thing. But here was the biggest change. I would give tours at Adobe. Adobe has some amazing buildings. And as Isidro said, I mean, these are companies that have a lot of money, so they look really pretty. And Adobe has a basketball court between 3 buildings. It's like beautiful. So I would give tours at lunchtime to groups of people that come in and want to check out what tech is like. And this particular group is called Digitalness. Shout out, I'm a board member. They came in, and these are younger kids from the fields, from strawberry fields, from lettuce fields. And they're wanting to enter tech, and they're looking at this. I'm giving the tour. I'm like, here's the basketball court. Here's this. And one guy stopped me, and he says his eyes were watery. And I was like, okay, that's just awkward, right? But I was pushed to ask him what's going on, and he's like, there's no way that somebody like me can end up at a place like this. And in that moment, I had to say, what do you mean somebody like you? And he says, I come from, this. And I'm like, okay, let me tell you a little story. And that's when I actually had to humble down, get the real Martha story out and say, look, I'm just like you. As a matter of fact, I come from dirt, shacks. Like it's like I'm from the bottom of the bottom, and I am here. And I'm here. I'm not just a tour guide, that's doing this part-time. I'm a marketer. I've been doing it for 25 years. And well, that was a pivotal moment, I think, in my life, because at that point I had to be real with who I was. And actually, I realized that by telling my story right then and there, I could change the perception of what tech was like. And I made it real for him. Because I was just like his sister, just like his mom, just like whatever, right? So that changed everything for me. 2 or 3 months later, Adobe had a diversity conference, and that's a conference you're hearing the talk in. And they were asking for diversity stories. And I'm like, oh my God, do I have a story for you, right? And it was like 300 words. And I basically said, I was smuggled into this country. I'm a marketer, remember, hard words. Smuggled into this country. And the prize was you get a chance to speak in front of 1,200 people, Adobe executives. Now, this could have gone both ways, right? Because now, out of 700 stories, mine was one of the top 6. And I could have totally exposed myself and, gone wrong. And who knows what kind of backlash I was going to get. Or it could have gone completely opposite, and I'm glad it did. My mom was in the audience that day, right next to the CEO of Adobe. My mom, a janitor.
I want to play towards the end of that.
It's been a dream of mine to speak. This is the first time I'm doing it, by the way. I've been scared. Maybe I didn't think I was good enough. Today, I'm pushing through scared. And dang, it feels good. I'm grateful. I will not lay low anymore. I will speak. My name is Martha. I'm a Mexican immigrant. And I am proof that with an opportunity and with good people, people like me can be at places like this. Thank you. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha.
Yeah. You said your mom was there. You also mentioned your dad passed when you were 19.
Yeah.
It just, if for many of you guys have ever seen a TED Talk, this was like a TED Talk. As we start to wrap it up, Jose and I were in Houston over the weekend, and we met a family, a man who had just this awesome story. And we talk about these things, about the hidden ingredients in the tacos, in the burritos, in the comida. It's not just, the salt, the pepper. It's these experiences that make the food taste better. Jose, tell us a little bit about that gentleman that was it the Tex-Mex sushi, which I didn't want to go, but I was forced.
Right. Sushi Tex-Mex.
Yeah.
So it's this little E450 shuttle bus that was retrofitted into a food truck. The gentleman was approaching 60, and he spent 20 years, maybe even 30, working in Japanese restaurants. Worked his way up from busboy to cook. And when I asked him, well, why did you open up a truck? He said he was tired of working for other people. And he got this truck and put it 2 blocks from his house. And it's about 30 feet from another truck. But it's wild Mexican sushi mixtures that were delicious. One of his daughters said that the man knows how to make 200 rolls, but there were only like 10 or 15 on the menu. It gets so crowded after 7 o'clock, they have to stop taking orders.
And they're there till like 2 in the morning.
Sushi, Mexican rolls. That's like the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Actually, so this guy just did it on his own, but there's a tradition of Mexican sushi that comes out of Sinaloa and Sonora that's even crazier. So he wasn't aware of this when he did it. He was just doing it. And now he's going to open up 2 restaurants. And I think it's a very similar story, right? You just can't take no for the answer. You just have to do it and then eventually jump in.
Yeah.
Not feast first, head first.
Head first, yeah. I like that you just said he didn't know he was doing it. He was just doing it. That's kind of what happened to me. I didn't know I was like going to be telling this story about Latinos and I didn't know that. I did it for 25 years. I was there. I didn't know in the 25 years I was creating a story that eventually can maybe open up doors or maybe help people go through doors, knock those damn doors down. Like, I didn't know that's what I was creating. I was just doing it because I liked it. And it just turning into this beautiful thing. And look we're talking now and it's like, it's such I'm just inspired. And the fact that we can call this episode Tacos and Tech, like seriously, those 2 things together, that just blows my mind. It blows my mind. Like, who would ever put tacos and tech? Well, you guys did. Somebody's got to do it.
Black kids call me a cracker, white kids call me a beaner. Ate lunch in school alone cause I didn't fit in with either. They told me that I can't rap, that you forget your ethnicity. But looking back from now, they couldn't see what God had planned for me.
But now it's the time of the show we call FACO. Have you ever heard that term?
Nope.
FACO is a person or a thing, an organization that misrepresents the taco or that misappropriates it. So you know, it's a safe word. It's there. If somebody makes fun of our culture, that person's a FACO. I mean, it just rolls off.
It's a 4-letter word, though.
Yeah, it's a 4-letter word, FACO. And so we dig up stories of where this goes wrong, and we go into a little bit of it. This week's FACO happened late in January of this year, early in February, down in Santa Monica, California, where police set up a command center right by the pier. And the Santa Monica Pier is one of the, you know, it's an icon, right, in the United States and the world. People love that place. Anyway, the police were there to set up a command center that to enforce unlicensed vendors. Santa Monica had been one of the first cities to roll out a program to license street vending, which was good. But then they targeted unlicensed ones, and most of them were Mexicanos, Latinos, eloteros and stuff. And that's not what makes them a FACO. What makes them a FACO is that when they went to go set up enforcement, it was like they were dealing with hostage negotiators. And then they even arrested one of the unlicensed vendors, Mexicana lady, because, you know, she was upset. So anyway, they're the FACO of the week. We
like it. They need a word.
Yeah. We end the show towards the end on a high note. Is TAQUOTE is a quote with a little bit of a taco twist to it. And so this one is: a taco sin nada is still better than a FACO con todo. For those people that
Isidro, you should write a version of the Bible. The Gospels according to the tortilla.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
You know what? If it doesn't exist, make it.
Yeah. So, any final words, Jose, before we say goodbye to Martha?
Yeah, please follow her wherever you can. Where can they follow you? Are you on social media?
I'm on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I like to be on the professional forum just because I feel like I'm a little bit unconventional. And honestly, I've gotten some really great supporters. I mean, that's how Isidro and I met. And it's easy for an old person like me to figure it out too. So So join me on LinkedIn, Martha Niño. I do stories, I do posts, I do reflections, or connect with Martha at gmail.com. You can send me an email too. MarthaNiño.com. All these things, by the way, I had never done. Like, what, a website? What the heck? But you just adapt. There's one thing about us: we are adaptable. Let's be adaptable. So invent words, whatever we have to do to kind of make it us. So yes, Haley, I'd love to talk to you guys.
All right. Thank you. And for those listening, you can follow Isidro at 10K Tacos and me at Taco Trail on all social media platforms. Thanks again to everyone.
And once again, Martha, thank you for joining us. This is great. I'm sure we could have chatted a lot longer, and we didn't get to talk about tacos that much, but the important message is you cracked the code, and congratulations for that. Thank you for joining us.
That's beautiful. Thank you for having me on your show, and peace and love.
On behalf of Jose Ralat, my wonderful co-host, I am the proud son of a taquero, and this is 10,000 Tacos.